Hey everybody, what's going on? It is James here with Crypto Common Sense, aka Three Peaks Trading, and today is November the 28th, which means it is Black Friday. So I'm going to cover a few different topics in this video. First things first, I almost never do any type of self-promotion on this channel, but in this video I'm going to because, again, it is Black Friday and some of you have asked about this. So this is the time of year that every year I do open the doors up to my trading courses as well as my trading software. These really are special deals. They're only offered once a year around this time of year. I'm not going to do a big sales pitch. It's just not my style. I'm not into hype. I'm not into any of that stuff. So if you'd like to check out that, I will put a link down in the description. You can click that link. It'll take you over to this page and you can learn more about me if you're not sure who I am. And you can learn more about, my autistic style if you're not sure about that. And of course, you can learn more about how to join the courses and the software and all that kind of stuff. So we'll keep that short and sweet. Second, I made a huge mistake in my last video and I wanted to correct that now. When I started the video, I had it on my mind to talk about gold and I'd had it on my mind to talk about cryptocurrency. And then I strayed over into QQQ territory, which is fine, except I forgot to mention that when you're measuring your returns on like a stock, you have to remember to include the dividends. So when I was including, talking about, the QQQ would have to go to XYZ to get the same return as this and that. And if you watch the last video, you'll know what I'm talking about. I forgot the dividends, and that does make a difference. Not a huge difference, but significant enough that it should have been included in the video. So I apologize for the oversight. It wasn't on purpose. It was complete brain fart on my part. So if you're going to look at stocks, make sure you realize whether or not they have dividends included. I was thinking of NDX, which is an index and it doesn't have dividends, but of course QQQ does. So those 2 points out of the way, we're going to keep the video fairly short. I just want to talk about QQQ, about what's happening right now. If you all remember, I said that I felt like this back here when it was happening. I said it felt more like exhaustion than a true move up. It felt like bears capitulating. And it looks exactly like, what happened. Of course, then we had the big, like 8 to 9% move down. I'm still leaning more to the bear side than I am the bull side in this, but not a lot. Probably like 60-40 because I look at this, it could potentially be setting up, and we don't know yet. Could be setting up a head and shoulders, although this right shoulder is getting pretty high, so that's starting to look less and less likely. I'm looking at the volume. There was a uptick in volume, selling volume here. So that's something, but it doesn't really look like capitulation level selling volume. So I'm not sure about that. The buying volume itself has been kind of weak. You don't really want to look at today's volume because today there was a short trade day. The market's closed early. So this is kind of, an outlier. But the volume's not really screaming a ton of interest in this market. So when we zoom out, we can see that's pretty standard volume overall. So I'm a little unsure about that right now. I do have some short positions against the market. And originally they were in QQQ, but I actually closed those and then opened SQQQ instead, which is a leveraged inverse ETF. So I opened those, I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't recall which day exactly now. But those do have a stop loss. If we start taking out these levels back here, then I'll go ahead and close those. Look for an entry at a different time. I'll just eat the stop and move on. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for on QQQ, is to see if it can take out this level. Over on Bitcoin, I had mentioned in my Discord earlier this week, saying that after this big move down, we really need to wait and, kind of let the market digest that move before we can kind of predict what was coming next. And so I think that's still where it's at right now. My gravitator threw a buy up there, but I don't trust that. Not that it's not a great indicator. It is. I mean, look, it, predicted the exact bottom back here, but it's not perfect. It missed this one too. Got this one in March 2020, which was killer. But I don't trust that. I think this is, likely going to be a dead cat bounce, and I don't want to get trapped in that. Not that I do a lot of trading on Bitcoin anyway. If we look at this, of course, I called this move down. I predicted in the November 7th video that we were looking at a potential move to 80 to 85,000. It bombed right at 81,000, so right in that zone. So this looks just like a bounce, basically, right? Sellers kind of capitulated. Excuse me. Buyers capitulated, right? We saw an uptick in volume here. And then I don't think it's so much that buyers came stepping in as much as sellers are just waiting. You have to remember that smart sellers aren't going to sell the bottom. They're going to wait for a bounce and sell into that bounce. And so I think that's what we're about to see here. One reason that I feel that way is because if we look at Bitcoin versus the QQQ, which gives us a relative strength versus tech stocks, we're going to see that it really hasn't bounced. It's really just moved sideways. Right? Had this little basically doji candlestick here, and then it's just literally sitting at the same level for like 2 days. So that doesn't look like strength. It just looks like the whole market itself is digesting this move. I've seen some talk on social media from some people with fairly high follower accounts, basically poking fun at anyone who's bearish. And here's what I'll tell you guys, the same thing I've said many times before. No one knows what the market's going to do. And the only people who tell you they know what the market's going to do are either A, delusional, which I think is the case with a lot of social media people. I don't think it's even malicious. I think they're just actually, they buy into their own legend. Or B, they're trying to sell you something, right? They're trying to con you. So be very, very careful with that, because no matter how good somebody is, everyone's wrong once in a while. That's just part of life. I've had some calls that are probably some of the best calls in market history, if we're being honest. Especially that call back from October of 2019. And just so you guys know, I posted several calls on this. I wouldn't suggest you go check this out, even if you don't plan on joining any of my stuff, just because I do think sometimes there's this tendency to think, oh, well, he got a couple of calls and he's just talking about those over and over. No, I have almost 8 years of these, like over and over again, like calling the Litecoin at the top, calling Bitcoin the drop to 4,000, calling the exact drop in 2018, called the bottom 4 or 5 months ahead of time, poking fun at Tyler Winklevoss when he said, buy the dip around 10K. And I laughed at that. And of course it dropped to 4K. This is the one that everybody knows about. If you ever watch my videos, you'll know about that call. But there was this call on AMC. I posted this the day before AMC exploded. There was this call in May of 2021 saying that, I thought Bitcoin was going to fall 8 to 12,000. It fell to 15.5. And I said, I think it'll go to 100, 150K for the next top. This is 4.5 years, guys. I called it 4.5 years in advance. This was gold, saying I was bullish on gold around 1,700 bucks. Gold's now around $4,000 an ounce. This was when I bought Bitcoin in a flash crash, made over 500% in about 2 minutes. And I sold it. People got mad when I sold it. I talked about it on YouTube, and people were like, oh, Universe gave you a gift and you slapped it in the face. And again, this is me calling the top in November 2021, posting the complacency chart. This is me calling the top on Rua, saying it's in a double top. Then it fell 30%. This is me calling the top on lumber. Right there is where I made my post, around 1160. It floated just over 300. This is the bear flag where I was saying, look, it's got a target down around 12K. And it broke down from there all the way to 15.5. This is me calling the disbelief phase on silver. It ran up from $20-something to like $22 up to $50-something, $54. I'm still sitting on some of my silver now even. This is me saying, hey, we're in disbelief back in last year. And of course, that was right back here before it popped. And this is me saying Bitcoin's looking like it's going to 100,000 back in July of last year. And then this is that video I did. So, and these aren't all of my calls. And again, transparency, I'm not always right. I want to point that out there. But even with my track record, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I have a guess, right? 60, 70%. Maybe in best case scenarios, it's a little more than that. Like, in early November, I said I was about 90% sure that Bitcoin was in distribution. And of course, I was right. It was in distribution. It distributed. I said the mark down had the target down around 80 to 85,000. That's exactly what happened. But even then, I said I was about 90%, and that was unusual. And I said it was unusual. Usually I'm about 60 to 70%. So with my history of calls that rival some of the very best calls from anybody in the space, I'm still telling you I don't know what's going to happen. I just have a tendency to be right more often than I'm wrong. So don't blindly trust anyone's opinion, no matter how smart they are, no matter how amazing they are. There are people out there who are amazing, but don't bet your life on it. Right now, I feel like this is still very much a wait and see market. I believe 70, 75% that Bitcoin itself is still in a bear market. QQQ, I'm a little less sure of, especially because we got some stuff happening where they're talking about stopping the quantitative tightening. Little less sure that QQQ is going to melt down. The AIs may continue to bubble up more. Do I think it'll eventually crash horrifically? I think it will absolutely crash horrifically. I'm talking a 60 to 80% sell-off minimum on the Mag 7. But I don't know if we're there yet. Bitcoin, on the other hand, I feel very strongly, again, at least 65, 75%. We'll just say 75%, right? 75% sure that this is still a bear market and that this is going to go lower. Right now, the initial target that I'm looking for is going to be down around $40,000. And then it will be a reevaluation to see whether or not that's a bottom where we can look for a new bull trend after that, or if it's going to be deeper than that. And that will depend mostly on what the broader stock market is doing if that comes to pass. Keep in mind, structure is simple. 19-week is moving down. If you look at a daily chart of this, the 50 is moving down. The 200 is moving down. Those are my thoughts. Right now, I still view this as bearish until proven otherwise. Don't forget to check that link down in the description. Again, that is a true deal. This is not fake scarcity. I'm not one of those guys. I open the doors on these specials once a year and once a year only. I typically leave them open for about a week and then it closes and that's it. And people can attest to this. They've asked me, hey, how do I get access? There hasn't even been a sales page. There's not even been a page to get access for the last 11 months. It's a once a year thing. If you want that discount, you've got to jump on it this week. All that being said, remember that I am still some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, so nothing in the video is financial advice. You should always go out and do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice. I'm a licensed financial advisor for making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, precious metals, Forex, or any other tradable asset.